Welcome back everybody to another Swift Programming Basics tutorial. This is part 4 in our Basics series, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over ranges. Ranges come in quite handy when programming with Swift, so let's go ahead and get started and show you a few examples of how to create a range. So here in our first example, this is what's called a closed range. So we've created a variable, we've given it its name, and then we've used the single equal sign to assign our range here. Okay, so this range basically starts at 1, and then we use this syntax here, which is 3 dots, and it goes to 10. Okay, now our next example here is very similar. However, you're going to notice that the syntax for the range is just slightly different. So instead of 3 dots, it's going to use 2 dots and then a less than symbol. And this is what's called a half open range, and basically the difference between the closed range and the half open range is that in this case for the closed range we're going to start at 1 and go to 10. But in this example for the half open range we're going to start at 1 and go up to but not including 10. Okay, so let's go ahead and comment this out for now, and we're going to use this for loop here to loop through the values in our range that we created. And in this first example, we're going to loop through the range 1 values. So that would be this example. So we're going to say for I in range 1, and then we're going to use a print to display the values. Inside the print round brackets, we're going to put our iterator that loops through those range values. So let's go ahead and run it. And you can see down here in the console we get 1 through 10. So that would be this range. Now let's change our range in our for loop to range 2. So that would be this half open range here. And this should start at 1 and go up to but not including 10. Let's go ahead and run it. And it goes from 1 to 9. Or you could think of that as 1 up to but not including 10. Okay, so those are two simple examples of how to create ranges. Here we have a closed range, and here we have a half open range. This one goes from 1 to 10, and this one goes from 1 up to but not including 10. Here we used a for loop to loop through each of the values in both of those types of ranges. Let's comment this out. And now let's go over a simple example. Okay, so here we created an array with the values A, B, C, D, and E. Then here we've used a for loop and we've said for I in, and let's explain this code here just a little bit. Okay, so we start with our range syntax. This is the half open range syntax. We start at 0 and then we go up to but not including some number. And to create that number we want to use our array. So we reference our array and then we use a dot to get the count for that array. Now if we count the elements in this array, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So basically this syntax here is using a half open range that starts at 0 and goes up to but not including 5. Okay? Then inside the curly brackets for our for loop, we use a print, and inside the print we're going to use string interpolation, and then inside the string interpolation syntax here, we use our I from our for loop, and we want to assign a value which is using the index of the array to each element of the array. So what you'll see is that for A we want to assign 1, for B we want to assign 2, C we want to assign 3, and so on. Okay, so this syntax here will give us the number for each element of array 1. Then here we're actually going to access the elements of the array 1. So that would be A, B, C, D, and E. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see we get 1-A, 2-B, 3-C, 4-D, and 5-E. Now that's just a simple example of how you might use a range with an array to access the elements of that array. And just in case we didn't point this out earlier, here if you don't put that +1, it will start that index at 0. Okay, so that would turn this into 0 through 4 instead of 1 through 5. So it just depends on what you want to display and how you want to display it. Now, as we mentioned when we started this tutorial, ranges come in handy quite often when using Swift, and we wanted to give you a basic idea of how ranges work before we use them in our future tutorials. Okay, so this is just the basics, and we will be going over many more examples of when and how to use ranges in our future tutorials. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial on the basics of how to use ranges in Swift. We will be doing many more Swift tutorials in the near future. Join us for those, and we'll see you next time.